Okay. So this is a little bit of a hybrid. So I want to talk about strengths and weaknesses of online teaching versus in-person teaching. So thinking of it from the perspective of the student, from the perspective of you, the teacher, from the perspective of the learning environment. Like for me, to know whether I can do this, what we're doing, was quite stressful because I had no idea whether the internet was going to hold out for us or not, for example. And in some of the countries you guys have gone to with online training, it can be problematic. And also from a leadership organizational perspective. So can I say I personally found it quite challenging running this whole weekend on my own. And so it would have been fantastic if there was some organizational leadership to help in doing the task. So that's not a criticism. I'm just saying that would have made my life much easier in a positive sense. So I would like you in groups of 3 to 4, then feedback to a larger group. So there's a thing called 1, 2, 4 and more, where you think about something. So we could actually do a 1, 2, 4 and more here. So you think about, in your head, what are the strengths and weaknesses of online teaching versus in-person teaching? And you'll have maybe a minute to do it. And then I want you to pair with the person next to you and just kind of start talking about it from all of those perspectives, and then group another 2. So it's 1, 2, 4, and then the more is the whole group together. So it's, again, another method of getting group collaborative work where individuals get to think a little bit deeper and you're not just sitting passively listening to someone tell you stuff, and you get to think about it, but you also get to share the gems and wisdoms of other people. So let's give that a go. I've given you 10 minutes. So starting, I'll make it 8 because I talk too much, starting now. So I want you to think of in your head, which you've probably already done. If you're ready, talk to the person next to you, and maybe I'll give you maybe 3 or 4 minutes and I'll say time to group up or something like that, and then we'll try it, and then we do feedback to hear. Okay, can I draw everyone back? I just want to highlight that I had a Mentimeter, but I forgot. I was going to do this, but it didn't matter anyway. I was going to ask you what your strengths and what was your personal experience with teaching and online. So before I split you up in groups so that we had people of differing levels at every table, but that didn't happen. But just for fun, we can do it. So this is my Mentimeter, the way I do it, which is different to the Mentimeter the way Andy does it, but there are multiple different ways of doing Mentimeter. So that's your QR code, or you can type it in, and it will just ask you what is your experience with teaching online. So sorry, there it is. Everyone there? And then I go to, so there's options are novice, intermediate, and expert. So it's be interesting to see in the room where people think they're at in terms of online. The young people haven't entered yet. There's no expert. So I was just, while that was going on, saying that, highlighting before, which I mentioned to Andy, this is a really good way, and I toggle between PowerPoint and this, so I have total control. Yeah. And this is a good way to see everyone's engagement on. So only 9 of you have engaged. Some of you don't have a phone, so I get it. Some of you don't want to fess up. That's also okay. You also need to give people an opportunity to do that, but it just gives you a sense of engagement. And by only showing the slide when you're ready to demonstrate, like this one doesn't matter, but if it was one where the answers, might influence someone else, I wouldn't show the slide until people have got it in, for example. And people are also really interested in other people's responses. So I'll sometimes then show, this is what we got at University of Sydney. So, okay, we'll stop there. So most of you are intermediate. So there might be stuff you're teaching me too. So we are co-sharing with each other. I'm just bringing my perspective into it. So back to my instructions. So you've talked about strengths and weaknesses, and we know there are lots of strengths and weaknesses with teaching online. we'll go, do people feel strongly they got to say something at this point about something they're struggling with that? Okay, let's move on. So building an online team, I think this is really important rather than doing solo. Okay, so I think actually, all right. So this is actually, this is bad organisation from my part because I've been so busy organising everyone else. I haven't looked back at my slides. So I actually did something very similar to this in the UK, and what I did was create a whiteboard, and we just had strengths and weaknesses. And we will just talk couple. So nominal group work is also a nice way to make sure everyone gets to have their say. So instead of, one person giving 20 answers and writing it all out, if you get each group to give one response that hasn't been mentioned, then go around again, that allows everyone a voice, everyone to participate, and it gets the sort of the interactiveness going. So you've just done 1, 2, 4 and more. So let's do a nominal group work about strengths and weaknesses, starting with this group here. Can you think of a strength or a weakness that your group discussed?
Online.
Yeah.
Strength of online outreach, so we can have people accessing from all over the world at any time. Excellent.
Next group, a strength or a weakness?
Weakness is hearing conversations in a group version.
Meaning poor sound, or meaning you get to hear other people's conversations?
It's not hearing when people ask questions from the audience and might get the answer from the front, but you don't actually hear what was said in the book.
So
it's hybrid. So hybrid, that's a hybrid thing, not a.
So can people think of a solution to that?
The lecturer needs to repeat the question, but they need to remember the question.
Yeah, so that's a really nice example. We've got people online. You'll have to speak up in sound, guys, because I can't read as well as do this. So hopefully you're screen. Fantastic. You're volunteering, wonderful. Don't you thank you. So online people, I'm hoping you could hear what Sue said, which I didn't say, which is repeat her comment, which is that online it's often very difficult to hear a conversation going in a room. And so the solution to dealing with that is to say the question again, state the answer, which is exactly that, and that helps communication. Now, Owen and Richard, if you have things to say, you're going to need to just physically speak and interrupt a bit, or oh, clever Chris can monitor chat. You can also chat. Can you hear me? Have I got sound back on? Yes, I have got sound back on. Okay, third group, strength or weakness.
So can I just say that the other thing is that you type the question in chat?
Yes, thank you. So for those who are, I was going to show some little things, but I'm assuming everyone in this room has voice chat. So everyone knows how to watch with chat. Most people are aware of typing with chat. So watch with Zoom, typing with chat. Now you can probably see I wrote direct messages to Owen, which no one else in the group that's on chat will be able to read. You're seeing my screen. Or you can go everyone, which lovely Chris has just demonstrated, which means everyone can read it. You also need to know that if someone joins chat late, they won't be able to read the previous messages, so you might have to repeat. So might be saying the obvious to some of you, but there are things that people have to come to.
So when you're presenting, you need to look at chat. That's what happens.
Yeah, so when you're
in a hybrid, you need to be conscious that they're just as much part of the group as the physical people, and it's easy to forget them and to forget to look at chat.
Yeah. So Sue just said, I wish I had a microphone. Sue just said that when you are presenting, it's a really good point. We need to be aware that the chat participants are every much as part of being in this room as we are, and it's ideal to have someone man chat so that the presenter's not busy trying to do too many things at once. And Owen has said good sound when speak up. So just put that in. Thank you. I think Owen's saying when we speak up, the sound's all right. Okay.
Strength or weakness is anonymity.
Being anonymous
online.
Being anonymous
That you can
online.
ask stupid questions or even disagree with the teacher and actually say it.
Yes.
That can be, they're not stupid questions, but you might feel they are. That can be helpful, but people are less embarrassed than rude.
Okay, so Owen and Richard, in case you can't hear, this is a bit like teaching in a country with a different language, actually repeating, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there are strengths and weaknesses of teaching cross-culturally in another country online, where you have to translate as well. So Rosemary was just saying the anonymity can be a strength, but it can also potentially be a weakness because you could say rude things. Yes. But
yeah, I can just say that.
no, but you have to be both. So I'm assuming it can be weakness, and I can only think if you're saying something.
Oh, the strength is if the person's asking that genuine question in the room, you can actually talk to them later, or other people can interact with them, and you lose that online. So that's a weakness. Yeah.
Can I ask Owen, can you hear Rosemary, or do I need to repeat myself every time? Serenade, I think that was Rosemary speaking correct. Could you hear what
yes,
she was
I could hear Rosemary.
Thank you.
Cool.
Right. Maybe we'll assume you can hear the room because we're all going to shout. And if you can't, can you just tell us? Because we've got chat and we can see you. That saves me repeating everything. But when you're teaching online in another country, you have to double your time because you have to do that. Yes.
The positive side of that is that if you've got positive side of that, of manning the chat, is that especially if you're dealing with 200 plus, the chat manner can synthesize the questions coming through, sort them into theme, and can then address the speaker in the room to address those multiple questions. So you cumulatively input the learning cascade because you are integrating all those online. Well, so
if I'm reading the chat, I can say, oh, look, maybe, yeah. So I can say, oh, look, 20 people have made some interesting comments. Let me synthesize that into 3 points.
Thank you. I thought there was maybe an E.
But one day.
delivery gives Patrina a break, changes the voice, and it improves engagement because you've got 20, 40, 60 people putting questions in. And she will then answer those questions or attempt to. So you are cumulatively maximising learning, group learning.
And just on that, I find that that online question asking and then responding by the facilitator is more effective online than, we've all been at a conference when there's 5 minutes at the end.
Yeah.
People take the microphone and they're not even asking a question. They just talk for a minute about their own experience or whatever, and then somebody else gets up and does the same thing. And I find that doesn't happen online. So there's a filtering. I think the quality of the questions online are better. And then the facilitator is able to do some filtering and some synthesis and then sort of present back.
It's a great to see it done well, and all our GP stuff, postgrad was done on that. So much, or within 1.5 hours, within an hour. Brilliant.
Well done. Have we finished up?
Yeah.
Second round. Any additional things?
Yeah, I think it's a good use of resources because it's less expensive. It pays large people. And if you are, for example, with South Asia, general practice of family medicine is a new specialty. There are few experts, but people access from Pakistan to Bangladesh to Sri Lanka to India. And Indians and Pakistanis attending the same class physically is practically impossible because of the political situation. So it's a good resource.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think COVID has brought us some good things, and this is one of them. And I think for the kingdom of God, online can be just Next week.
We had the challenge of people zoning out or cameras off, not really committing. So kind of being there, but not being there and interacting. I get it goes a bit with Zoom fatigue. I think that's kind of links with it, but also just gives people just to not engage because it's harder to fall asleep in a room.
Great. So, has anyone got some experiences of antidotes to deal with the disengagement with online?
Well, the classic one is to say you're not allowed to turn your screen off. You know,
Yeah.
you need to keep it on.
Yeah.
And I think learners might not like that, but it's one option, and it's a good option, particularly if you tell them up front, we're expecting this to be an interactive workshop, you know, and we're going to have break out into small groups, so I'm going to be asking you questions throughout, and I think learners will be much more open to screens on.
Yeah. And I think it they're copycats. So once one person screens off, everyone else screens off, and then I think it's a really good idea to actually have an expectation at the start that it's a screens on, unless you have a reason that. I know when Bob was teaching in Somaliland, he was feeling very disengaged. Bob Paxton, he was feeling very disengaged from the students because he said, I didn't know whether they were sitting listening or they're going to have a cup of tea, and he could not gauge them because, I mean, you know, you can't read the body language when you're online, and you can't even see them, just see your name. It's really problematic. In which case, we could actually even have Owen and Richard face to face at the moment. Face on the screen, but yes. So I'm sorry, I was going to.
No.
Is this?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yay, we see you. You can make it.
Richard's not.
Okay, Richard might not be very well on to go. That's okay. You can do a Brady Bunch if you want it.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, the young people, there's a show called Brady Bunch. Which
We know Brady Bunch. Yeah.
Come on, mate.
Here's a story. Man named Brady.
Sorry. So that's one way to address the disengagement is screen on all the time. Was yours in response to that?
Yeah. Want to know who's asleep? Just do a mental exam. See how people respond. 200 get 20 responses.
I think to some degree, having screens off, my solution's been two things. One, establishing the rules very early.
Yeah.
And saying as a respect thing from the teacher, it's actually very difficult to teach a blank screen. And the other thing is that it kind of forces you to incorporate more interactive teaching right at the beginning.
Yeah.
So before you can deliver half an hour of didactic teaching where everyone's got their screens up, and at the end it's more interactive and they'll turn on. But instead that, as I said, it forces you to then bring something more interactive right at the beginning.
It
Yeah.
forces the teachers.
Yeah.
Even more.
Yeah.
I'm going to play devil's advocate in regards to, because we've been having to deal with this with the 160 students online. And so when you're a presenter presenting and you're sharing your screen, you can't actually see any, like, that many people's faces. So then you're forcing people to turn their screen on, but you can't even see them anyways. And everybody's trying to just focus on your presentation. So, I mean, you could say, you could turn your camera on when I don't slides share. You could say that, but then, yeah, it's just from a learner's perspective, having the screen on all the time, yeah, it can be quite intimidating to know who is looking at you on your screen at the same time. Like, you just don't know who's looking at, you know, you might have just been scratching your nose or something, but it's much more direct rather than in a room. I'm not like looking at someone's face intently all the time. Yeah, so that just.
So can I show you this screen? This is what I'm doing. So if you were in a lecture, you would be in a room with someone sitting next to you and be watching them at all times with fun, right? So that's the natural situation. So you can actually do this sort of screen where, you know, people have their screens on, but you don't feel quite so self-consciously you're right in the face a little bit. And it is actually in reality with regards to the lecture together. This is actually.
How do you do?
So how we do this is you go into, you know how this under view, can you see view here on the top right?
Yeah.
So if you do speaker view, then whoever speaks is on, and it was on Owen because I've turned my sound off. But if you do gallery, which is what the old people call Brady Bunch, it looks like that. And if you do immersive, it gives you an option of being in a room in multiple different sort of settings. So some of them is like in a lecture room style, and some of them are like you're in a picnic or, you know, various things. So, you know, you just click start. Okay.
That's university zone.
Is it?
Yeah, not everyone has those. I don't have those.
Maybe that's.
Oh, okay.
But does everyone see this view? Does it just you, or does everyone?
Everyone sees it.
Everyone sees
Yeah,
this
it's
view.
quite fun with like, if there's 10 to 20 people, it's quite a nice vibe. Particularly if you know each other and you're all sitting there.
That's cool. I like that.
Sorry,
We used to have meetings like that, and it's quite cute. Yeah.
Actually, I need it on the top. Because that doesn't allow me
Oh,
to.
sorry.
Yeah, so it's all right. I just.
You want me to stop share?
I would agree with Claudia. Because
We're still on this.
the other thing, with me, but the other ways you can do it, you can talk
So I
to
can interact with you.
live engagement, so they can choose to be what you're going to speak,
Okay.
but that's a separate issue.
One issue I have faced is using the presenter view in PowerPoint. It's a challenge in Zoom. I don't know how you have you tried using the PowerPoint, you have the presenter. Doing
Yeah.
it on Zoom,
Yeah.
you
I
can
can't
do
do
it. It's a challenge, but you have to make that.
I can't. And so some young people.
I have done.
So you might talk to the younger people who might have figured it out. I just don't do it because I can't do it.
We do it with double. Do you have dual screen or only one screen?
I
Two
usually use
Do you have one or two monitors? Okay, so the easiest way to do it is if you have your laptop and you have an extra monitor, and then it's actually quite easy to set up. And your computer remembers how it works, and then you just literally press play presentation, and the two monitors show different things. So one monitor shows what the students are seeing on Zoom, and your laptop screen will show your notes. And as you toggle, it'll move slowly. Yeah. So if you have a work from home setup or something, I'd say just buy $100 monitor and play around with it, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah. It's game changing. You need two monitors.
Can you do it by split screen?
You can, but it's
You
fiddly.
can just show it on your TV. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
If you present with Teams, I know that may not be universal, don't worry, but it is possible. Well, that's what New South Wales uses MS Teams now, and the present view on that does exactly the same thing. You don't need to take a screen. You can see your notes, see what they're saying.
Yeah.
You can even see the people in the room. I mean, on the screen. Whereas
Usually
often you
back to
can't.
Zoom.
Can I just say though that MS Teams is still thirsty on bandwidth,
Right.
which makes it very difficult when you're trying to countries that low band.
That's probably in rural New South Wales too.
So Zoom better, is it?
Zoom is far better.
And what's even better than Zoom?
There are some sort of also bands.
I don't need that one.
No, because sometimes when people
Okay.
plug in, I just hear it on the
I mean, I know universities have to use MS Teams.
That's what happened.
I'm going to draw people. You can see this conversation can go on quite a lot longer, and there's some really good ideas, and love you to share beyond now. But in the interest of time, I'm not even going to keep going around. But you can see it's quite a depth of experience in the room. But if I could just summarise like what was the summary of the UK trips, things that brought up. So team building was a big topic. So you know, allowing time to build and establish a team prior to the teaching rather than last minute, having clear task allocation, issue of different time zones and different places. That's a real biggie, particularly if you're teaching internationally. The importance of the role of prayer. I can't overestimate. I pray for my technology every single time. Praise God that today we haven't had a hitch because there's about 15 people praying for the IT. Seriously, that's happened. And then post-teaching debriefing for your team is really important. So communication is really important. Communicating with the teaching team. So before you teach, during the teaching, and then with students, using WhatsApp's helpful. So you might not know, but I've been texting Owen and Richard using WhatsApp so we can communicate. And someone can even, you know, as we speak, they could say, hey, you know, like Owen saying, I couldn't hear you. That was just using WhatsApp as a way to ensure there's multiple ways of communicating. The importance of understanding your audience, communicating with the audience before the teaching, remembering student-centered learning, and that is not only understanding what they need to know, but understanding the culture they came from and the environment they came from, understanding what to expect. So that's a big unpacking. Getting honest student feedback is really important. Most people, particularly in developing countries, will say you are wonderful and just like really not to give you constructive, helpful feedback. So to build an environment where people feel comfortable to tell you what's going on, it will only enhance your relationship with them, your teaching and them. And the importance of having a certificate on completion, that's particularly some of the third world countries where it's really important to demonstrate they've attended lesson. So for some of us, we think it's not all important, but it's actually really answers people participating. So in enhancing interaction with students, we've talked about this. So encourage students to leave on their screen. It's interesting, when we were working with Myanmar, it was groups of students in centres that we connected via Zoom. So rather than an individual, it's actually with groups of students doing role plays. So that's having the Brady Bunch screen where everyone who's not got a role goes on blank. And Owen taught me how to, because I had a picture of myself on blank. So Owen taught me how to actually blank my picture of myself, which is very helpful. And I don't know if someone's got role play on today, but if you're doing a completely online role play, you just have the characters who are speaking whatever on their face, and everyone else goes on blank, and it works pretty well. Spotlighting actors and others back out. Breakout groups, you guys know about breakout groups, and if you haven't experienced or don't know how to put it together, it's not difficult. It's really very easy. And you can break out groups in either, specifically this group is the, young people, older people, or male, female, or those who live in this country, those who live in that country, or you can do random and check, just get whatever. And often the planning is around what is the best way that these students will get the most out of the teaching. Is it better to be mixed or not? Will they speak? So, for example, in some of the countries where we break out groups, if you have a dominant male doctor in a room with female nurses, often female nurses will not speak up. So just really thinking culture, thinking picture about even how you do the breakout groups. Discussion groups, different strategies for different group sizes. So large numbers, Mentimeter is great. 1, 2, 4 and more, you had a little go. Nominal group feedback, we've talked about that. Small group numbers are good to allow comments with hands up in Zoom. So there's a small number of people all on Zoom, they can just put hands up and then you can tell who's next. Because when you put your hand up, your picture goes to the top of the Zoom screen so people know you're the next person to ask the question. So you can either have a virtual hand up, or some Zooms allow you, when you actually put your hand up, it pops the hand up. It's very clever. So that's helpful as well. Also with Zoom in developing countries, often allowing the person to not only translating, which goes almost without saying, but allowing the person to answer in their heart language rather than in English, and then have the chat manner interpret it for you or type it out for you. That's really helpful because it allows people to be a bit more deep in their responses.
Can I just ask, with your from experiences, do you have a team that gives you the cultural debrief where you're going to beforehand, or do you do it yourself?
That is part of your teamwork. It is part of preparation work, which is why you don't just jump in and go, to have a team to prepare. So when we did the Myanmar stuff, which was entirely online, we actually met with people, we found out as much as we could, we talked to people who'd worked in that country to understand a little bit of the culture of the place and what the people will be like. And even then it was still not as expected. So a big one was when you ask, do you speak English? And they go, yeah, we speak English. And we started delivering and then realised that actually half of them didn't know what to talk about. And so then to suddenly in the middle of a teaching, factor in translation just is very challenging. But it's also part of our job to be flexible. Right? So, and
Sorry.
Yeah.
So what happened in Arusha was that they prepared French slides as well as English, and then all of a sudden Spanish speaking group popped up, and spontaneous Swiss speaking Spaniard going on and just translating the table.
Oh, wow.
So we actually had three screens in 3 languages. It was fantastic. It was fantastic. It was really good. Now I'm being disrespectful to Owen because I'm eating into his time. So this might be eating into your dinner. So teaching in another language, that's a real biggie. Does anyone want to share any of these? I'll just allow you to have time to look at it and ask any questions that you want, because it's self-explanatory.
So using Google Translate in written form or repeated listening?
So to use Google Translate is a desperate last measure because it's not accurate. If you've got someone who speaks that language, it's much better to have a native speaker be your translator, 100%. But if you're stuck, and if you're stuck in a group who claim they understand English, so I had that in China, not the Hainan group, but a Beijing group. What we did was we translated the big words, and you can use Google Translate to grab what does compassion mean in Chinese character, and I just glued it next to the English word. So even though they said they're fluent in English, and I think maybe they don't really understand what that means, I've actually provided a bit of help for them. But so using Google Translate is also helpful when you have no one else and you've got to say something. So it's not ideal, but it's so good to exist. It's much better than.
Have you ever used it with Google with the conversation one, where you just speak and it speaks the other language straight away?
Or have I haven't, but others have. Have you?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah, it's very, very accurate, and it shows you what it's going to say in English, and so it's wrong. We had some people from Brazil staying with us, and it was so much easier to have a conversation than typing.
Yeah. Oh, that's with, but can you do it with Zoom?
I'm just saying on your phone.
Oh, yeah, on your phone. Yeah, we use it in clinics sometimes.
Yeah.
I have a dem patient.
But that
It's very
conversation,
effective.
the conversation aspect of it is so much easier than just the type.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. Any other comments on those?
I always double check the Google Translate. Like, for example, I delivered something to a Korean audience of diabetes, and he translated pancreas into the Korean word for kidneys, right? And I didn't realize this until the translator, who was real time, told me. So,
that's the problem. You don't know.
Yeah, so I copy and paste the word, put into images to make sure that the image that comes up is kind of
So what we did for global conference, the time global conference, had brilliant friends come. We sent PowerPoints to them and got them to translate it so that they then went to engage much more. And it's a lot of organising and good planning that they try.
So there's lots of ways you can creatively use Google Translate. Just to remember, don't 100% trust it. Moving on. Sorry, Owen. Zoom, we've talked about that. Breakout room. Whiteboard, you know whiteboard? So whiteboard, it's on Zoom, you can just like have a whiteboard and people can type things on it. It's not anonymous. I think it says your name when you type it. So as opposed to Mentimeter, which is anonymous. And Mentimeter, which is
worth pointing out, don't get that on free version.
The whiteboard?
Yeah.
One of the nice things to using whiteboard is as you write things down, people can also put like ticks and smiley faces and love hearts and things. So, well, no, I mean, I actually as a collaborative exercise, it's quite fun because as you're brainstorming and somebody's writing, then all these little little emojis come around the screen as well, and that's been sort of quite heartwarming.
Great. So this was just to show people what Mentimeter can do. I'm not going to do a demonstration because I'm running out of time, but it can do word clouds, it can do polling, it can do voting, it can allow you to write reams of stuff, and it's anonymized, so that's lovely. Techie stuff. You really need a tech support person to manage a breakout room. If nothing else, to readmit participants who drop out and need to be admitted owing to connection issues. What do you do when internet drops out? So have a lot of other alternatives. So students need to be able to contact a techie person for help, WhatsApp, email, text. And students may want to join by phone rather than computer, although computer does give them a lot more access to things. The teacher can have someone else show the PowerPoint. Teacher, have someone else show the PowerPoint for the speaker. So if tonight's power drops out, they can ring in and I can put it on sound and I can run the PowerPoint. So I've got everyone's PowerPoint now, so that if anything happens, I can still show the slides. And you can email PowerPoints to students to look at it during the session, but you run the risk of them going ahead and not really listening to you. Pray. Really important. Techie stuff and prayer go like this.